currently right now on Luke chapter 14. And as you have seen, you've seen this this constant observance and conflict that's going on between Jesus and the Pharisees. Now, once again, the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the lawyers and scribes are all the current religious leaders of that day. And it's not over. They're going to continue on. And of course, we know the story. We know that the conflict between Jesus and these Pharisees are going to continue until Christ eventually lays down his life. And from their perspective, they feel they're going to put him to death. But we know that the Bible says that Jesus does not, no one kills him, but he lays his life down what? Freely. All right. So let's go right on into our reading. This is Luke chapter 14.
Chapter 14. And it came to pass, as he went into the house of one of the chief Pharisees to eat bread on the Sabbath day, that they watched him. And behold, there was a certain man before him which had the dropsy. And Jesus answering spake unto the lawyers and Pharisees, saying, Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath day? And they held their peace. And he took him and healed him and let him go. And answered them, saying, Which of you shall have an ass or an ox fallen into a pit, and will not straightway pull him out on the Sabbath day? And they could not answer him again to these things. And he put forth a parable to those which were bidden, when he marked how they chose out the chief rooms, saying unto them, When thou art bidden of any man to a wedding, sit not down in the highest room, lest a more honorable man than thou be bidden of him. And he that bade thee, and him come and say to thee, Give this man place, and thou begin with shame to take the lowest room. But when thou art bidden, go and sit down in the lowest room, that when he that bade thee cometh, he may say unto thee, Friend, go up higher. Then shalt thou have worship in the presence of them that sit at meat with thee. For whosoever exalteth himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. Then said he also to him that bade him, When thou makest a dinner or a supper, call not thy friends, nor thy brethren, neither thy kinsmen, nor thy rich neighbors, lest they also bid thee again, and a recompense be made thee. But when thou makest a feast, call the poor, the maimed, the lame, the blind, and thou shalt be blessed, for they cannot recompense thee, for thou shalt be recompensed at the resurrection of the just. And when one of them that sat at meat with him heard these things, he said unto him,
Blessed is he that shall eat bread in the kingdom of God.
Then said he unto him, A certain man made a great supper, and bade many, and sent his servant at supper time to say to them that were bidden, Come, for all things are now ready. And they all with one consent began to make excuse. The first said unto him, I have bought a piece of ground, and I must needs go and see it. I pray thee have me excused. And another said, I have bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I go to prove them. I pray thee have me excused. And another said, I have married a wife, and therefore I cannot come. So that servant came and shewed his lord these things. Then the master of the house, being angry, said to the servant, Go out quickly into the streets and lanes of the city, and bring in hither the poor, and the maimed, and the halt, and the blind. And the servant said, Lord, it is done as thou hast commanded, and yet there is room. And the Lord said unto the servant, Go out into the highways and hedges, and compel them to come in, that my house may be filled. For I say unto you, that none of those men which were bidden shall taste of my supper. And there went great multitudes with him, and he turned and said unto them, If any man come to me, and hate not his father, and mother, and wife, and children, and brethren, and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. And whosoever doth not bear his cross, and come after me, cannot be my disciple. For which of you intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first, and counteth the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it? Lest haply, after he hath laid the foundation, and is not able to finish it, all that behold it begin to mock him, saying, This man began to build, and was not able to finish. Or what king going to make war against another king sitteth not down first, and consulteth whether he be able with 10,000 men to meet him that cometh against him with 20,000? Or else, while the other is yet a great way off, he sendeth an ambassage, and desireth conditions of peace. So likewise, whosoever he be of you that forsaketh not all that he hath, he cannot be my disciple. Salt is good, but if the salt have lost his savor, wherewith shall it be seasoned? It is neither fit for the land, nor yet for the dunghill, but men cast it out. He that hath ears to hear, let him hear.
All right, so there we go, chapter 14. And once again, we see a situation where the Lord is he's dealing with the Pharisees, and he's looking at the situation where he was invited to this dinner. Now, I think it's interesting when we look at this to maybe come to a conclusion as to thinking, well, he was invited because they really liked Jesus. You know, they thought so much of him that they wanted him to just come to his house. But when you look at the story and you really try to put things together, you begin to realize that no, they were really trying to do what? Set him up. And so the fact that when this opens up and it says, and Jesus, it came to pass as he went into the house of one of the chief priests to eat bread on what day? Sabbath. I think it was also important that they invited him over on the Sabbath day, because that was the day that they could do most of their ritual condemning, because they had a long laundry list of stuff that you could and could not do on the Sabbath day. So basically, they're setting them up. Now, they invited them on the Sabbath day that they may what? Watch him. All right? And look at verse 2. And behold, there was a certain man before him which had the dropsy, had some kind of disease. Now, why do you think the Pharisees invited this man that had the dropsy? Because they really loved him, or he was a good friend of them? Mm-hmm. He's part of the setup, isn't he? Yeah. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Then in the 13th chapter, maybe it's the 12th chapter, he healed someone, and they were like, he did it before.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And this is the reason why, because they now begin to learn his style, and they begin to realize he don't really have regard to the Sabbath day. Now, to them, that's a big problem, but he does have regard to it, but he has regard to it in the proper sense, whereas they have regard to it in a more majestic, controlling sense, and they want to control people, how to think, how to act, how to behave, and I want you, public, to do what I say, because I'm going to tell you to do the things that I feel are comfortable and proper and right to do. Of course, I do them the best. That's why I'm the Pharisee, and that's why I'm the chief Pharisee. And and you guys try to measure up. So you see this sense of superiority that exists amongst the Pharisees and the other religious elite. And of course, throughout this entire chapter, Jesus is going to deal with that sense of superiority. He's going to look at it. But what you see here is an obvious setup. They invite Jesus over on the Sabbath day and plant this man in there that's got this issue. Look at verse 3. And Jesus answering spake unto the lawyers and the Pharisees, saying, Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath day? So Jesus is not taken off guard. He's not bewildered or perplexed at the fact that, that there's I'm here on the Sabbath day, and there's a man here that obviously needs to be healed. He wasn't blind to the fact that they were trying to set him up, and so he addressed the issue. He goes right to the point. He goes, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath day? He asked the question. Look at verse 4. And they held their peace, and he took him and healed him and let him go. Now, when he asked them if it was lawful to heal on the Sabbath day, what did they do? They didn't say anything. Because they knew that it was the law of the Sabbath versus making somebody well, and he had already addressed them previously about how if you got an animal caught in a ditch, and he's going to use the same analogy again, won't you go and heal them? All right. So in verse 5, it says, and answering them, saying, which of you, having a donkey or a ox falling into a pit, and will not straightway pull him out on the Sabbath day? So once again, he says the same thing again. You guys know this. You guys will go out there and you will save your animal. You won't let your animal die in a pit. All right? verse 6. And they could not answer him again to these things. So they tried to put him trap him in a corner, but they couldn't. Now, this strategy that the Pharisees use is very common. You see people do that today, and unfortunately people will do that in religious circles. Now, they'll say something like, we don't want you, we say it's unlawful for you to, they'll come up with something that they feel, have your hair longer than this. They put it like, okay, so you can't wear your hair no longer than this for guys or whatever. And it's not in the Bible that you can't have your hair that long. But then what they'll say, now since we say you can't have your hair no longer than this, and the Bible says obey them that have rule over you. Now, it's no sin to have hair longer than this. But if we tell you not to have hair longer than this, and then you disobey us, now you're breaking the Bible law because you are obeying them to have rule. You're disobeying them to have rule over you. You see how they try to connect stuff all once again, just to show control. I want to get you to do something that's not really written in Scripture, but I'm going to get you to do it by connecting the dots, so to speak, and then making a law, and then saying, okay, now you can't do this. It's all control. When in reality, we need to allow the Spirit of God to work in the hearts of people. Because when you're controlling people, they're not free. The Spirit of God gives freedom. And it's the freedom that the Spirit of God gives helps you to serve God without feeling that you are bound in. It doesn't bind you, it frees you. All right, but yet that philosophy, and it carries on even unto today. Verse 7. And he put forth a parable to those which were bidden. All right, now he's talking to the people that were bidden. That means he's talking now to the who? To the guests. Okay. All right. When he marked how they chose out the what? Chief rooms, or the chief seats, saying unto them, in verse 8, when thou art bidden of any man to a wedding, sit not at the what? Highest room, or the highest seats, lest a more honorable man than thou be bidden of him, and he being bid or asked thee to of him to come and say to thee, give this man place, that thou being with shame to take the what? Lowest room, or the lowest seat. All right. So he's basically saying, don't have this idea of when you go into a place that you want to sit at a place of honor just because of the place that you sit. Remember, honor doesn't come from all these tags and all these emblems and different things, which society does. Society does a lot of this stuff. We see people that does a lot of it in how they purchase stuff, or how they buy things, or how they the schools they choose to go to, and the cars they choose to drive. And not that it's wrong to go to school, and not that it's wrong to drive a good car, but a lot of times people do it for that purpose. I want someone to think I'm this, so therefore I will get this. I'm doing it not because I enjoy it or because I want it, but I want other people to think a certain way of me, so therefore I'll do it. And we have to be careful of that, all right? Not to allow that to become part of what we do. Now, within the religious circle, like any kind of organizational, there are so-called rankings and hierarchies, and there are places where people sit, and you walk into a certain arena of either a religious situation or organization, and just by where a person is sitting, you go, oh, that must be so-and-so, or that must be the chief guy, or that must be, just because of how the layout is. And Jesus is saying, don't be so apt to just be there. Now, he's not condemning, but he's saying that's not something you want to be. That's not something that you want to do. You don't want to have to be there all the time in a situation like that. All right? Good morning. So in verse 10, he says, and when thou art bidden to go and sit in the lowest room, that when he that bid thee come and he may say unto thee, friend, go up higher. Then thou shalt have worship of the presence of them that sit at meat with thee. And and that's one of the things that sometimes we should keep in mind, that honor a lot of times comes by the Lord, and it comes by the Lord's appointing. When you try to give yourself honor, a lot of times you'll end up being dishonored. And when you try to make just be who you are, a lot of times you'll end up being honored. And so it's important that we recognize that. We're in Luke chapter 14, verse 10. And so Jesus points this out to them. He says, just be who you are. There's a time and place for everybody's gift to be highlighted. Everybody has something that they can do that at a certain point in time, the Lord, through the abilities that he has given you, will put you up on a higher plane so that people can recognize that at this particular time, in this particular place, under these particular circumstances, you are the honored person because of whatever it is that the Lord has blessed you with. But you can't be the honored person all the time. Not everybody, no one should be the it all the time. Because the only person that can fall into those circumstances is who? The Lord. All right? The carpenter, he uses the hammer, but the hammer can't walk around talking about, yeah, look at how good a hammer I am. Oh, I'm telling you, I just can, and the hammer just walk around. But then when you put the hammer down and take the carpenter's hand off of it, what is the hammer? It's a paperweight. That's all it is. It just sits there. It can't do anything without the what? Without the carpenter. And the same thing with us. We can't feel that we're so honored or we're so wonderful from any standpoint. If the Lord doesn't put his hand on us, what are we? So we always should keep that in mind before we begin to recognize and try to think of ourselves as being so wonderful and so great. But at the same time, recognize that I am a tool of the Lord. So put proper perspective on it. Don't think that yourself is so lowly either. Oh, I'm nothing. No, you're a tool. If you're a hammer, you're a hammer. Oh, if you're a saw, you're a saw. If you're the screwdriver, you're the screwdriver. Whatever it is that you are, be who you are. But recognize I can't accomplish anything unless the carpenter puts his hand on me. I can't accomplish anything unless the Spirit of God equips me to do and to be that which he has designed me to be. And verse 11, then he continues. He says, for whosoever exalteth himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. And this is important to keep in mind about humility. Humility is one of those things that you just can't, you can't just say, I want to go out, I'm gonna be humble. Because the minute you try to be humble, guess what happens? You become proud. You just have to allow the Lord to help you to be who you are. And there's some people that have a little bit more, shebang. I just use that word as, they're a little bit more like, like the center of the light than others. And there are other people that more like the background. By nature, people are like that sometimes. Some people are more standoffish. Some people are more, want to be in the center of the limelight. And that's okay. But whatever your personality is, recognize that the Lord can use your personality type. Don't embellish it and don't hide it. Be who you are. Be the person that God has created you to be. And there's no reason to try to be overly humble, because that just shows more pride. I never forget, many years ago, I remember I was listening to this preacher talk, and he was saying how he doesn't want to drive a Cadillac. And he said, the reason why I don't want to drive a Cadillac is and I want to drive a Ford because I want people to think I'm humble. So he wouldn't drive a Cadillac, he wouldn't got a Ford because he wants people to think he's humble. Well, guess what? That just shows how much pride he actually has, because the only purpose for him buying a humbling car, in his view, was so people could have more of a greater opinion of him. He wanted people to feel he was humble. And so when I heard that many, many years ago, I've never forgotten that statement. I'm like, that's wrong. I said, I don't agree with that. If you want a Cadillac, you should just go get it because you like the car. Not because you're trying to impress. But if you want to save money and want to drive a cheaper car because you want to use the money for other people and other things, that's fine too.
Or he should have just kept that to himself. That's why he's driving the Ford.
Mm-hmm.
Once he broadcast it, it's like telling people, well, I'm fasting.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So when you're doing things and you do things for a specific purpose, The minute you try to, make yourself wonderful because you did it, it defeats the purpose. The scriptures talk about those that have their reward already. We really want our reward for whatever sacrifice we make. We're going to talk about sacrifice in a minute. Not to come from man, but to come from who? From God. And who wants temporal rewards when there are eternal rewards available? You see what I'm saying? All of us are going to get temporal rewards. We all get that. We get a paycheck. We get people that say, "Oh, you did a good job." We get pats on the back. We get thank yous. We get thank you cards and presents and gifts and all that. All those are things are fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But remember, don't be so focused on temporal rewards that you forget the fact that there are eternal rewards that we really want to be focused on. And those are the things that God has for us. All right, now look at verse 12. It says, "And then he said unto him that bade him to this dinner." Now, first he talked to the guests, right? Now he's talking to the person that invited him. And he said, "When thou maketh a dinner or a supper, call not thy friends, nor thy brethren, neither thy kinsmen, nor thy rich neighbors, lest they also bid thee again, and a recompense be made of thee." So he's saying, don't always call people that can, when you invite them to dinner, they can, you're going to serve steak, and they're going to invite you back over, and they're going to serve prime rib, and then you're going to invite them back over, and you're going to serve lobster, and y'all just going to keep inviting, and everybody's going to be recompensed. I paid out this month, next month you're going to pay out, and no one's really making any what? Sacrifice. So look at what he says in verse 13. "But when thou makest a feast, call the poor." Now underline that, because once again, how often does Jesus talk about helping those that don't have what you have? Consistently, all the way through, as we've been going through the scripture, time in and time out, the Lord says, when you have and someone doesn't have, you ought to bless them with that. Now, poor. Let's define poor. What does that mean? Okay, obviously, it could certainly mean if you got more money than somebody else, then they are considered to be what? Poorer than you. But let's also keep in mind that you are, if you're rich in money, then you should help. But there are certain people that are rich in other things. If you're rich in education, then you need to give to those that are lowly in education. If you're rich in joy, then you should find those that are lowly in joy, don't have as much joy as you. If you are rich in just whatever it is that God has blessed you with, and we can sit here and name a zillion different things, but that's why you have to know yourself. Know what God has put in you, and know what you have an abundance of. And whatever you have an abundance of, then you should be tuned in fairly readily to those that have a lack of whatever you seem to have an abundance of. And therein is your ministry. You see, that's how you find your ministry. That's how you find what God has called you to do. You find that thing that you are rich in, and then you begin to give. Now, let me also balance it by saying this. You remember the story when Jesus is watching those that are going forth to put money into the treasury, and then this woman comes and she puts in, 2 mites, and then Jesus makes a comment and says, "I tell you the truth, that all these people that have put all this money in, this woman has put in more than they all, because they put in of the abundance, but she put in of her penury, or of her lack of money." So not only does Jesus observe when you are wealthy in money or time or education or talent, and you give to those who don't have what you have, but he also recognizes when you take something that you have very little of and still give it. Right? So maybe you don't have that much money, but you still find somebody else to help. Maybe you don't have all the great degrees in education, but you still find somebody else to teach. Maybe you don't have all the time in the world, but you still find time to go help someone else. So, as you can see, then the work of the Lord is not isolated to any one thing. Whatever your hands find to do, do it. But understand, there are specifics that you should be trying to focus on. If you are rich in something, then you really need to be focusing on that, because then you got to give away those things that God has blessed you with. But then don't say, well, you know what, I don't have a whole lot of this, so I can't deal with none of that. Don't be so quick to do that, because that may be even where your greatest reward is. Because see, the person that was very rich in money is not going to get a whole lot of eternal blessings because they gave away money. Because they gave away something that they had, you know, I didn't have a whole lot of pain because I gave it away. I had so much money that I could give that money away and never really feel it. But the person that didn't have any or that much, as Jesus pointed out about this widow, their rewards are going to be great. But your reward for doing your ministry of whatever your abundance is the fact that you were obedient, that you recognized it, that you sought, and that you did it. Not by how much you did, but the fact that you did. And that's important to keep in mind. All right. Verse 14, he says, and thou shalt be blessed, for they cannot recompense thee. For thou shalt be recompensed at the what? Resurrection of the just. You see? So the Lord is saying, when you give to those that can't give you back, the Lord knows. And he will then, that's the eternal reward, the eternal blessings that we should strive for. Verse 15. And when one of them that sat at meat with them heard these things, he said unto him, blessed is he that shall eat bread in the kingdom of God. Now, you have to understand, just try to keep in mind the scenario. They're at this dinner, and remember, this is like a little party. You know, everybody's around, and most of what Jesus teaches is about, sometimes we get this image on our mind that he's like sitting in the church talking. He's at somebody's house, they're gathering around, they got, all the little stuff. And then Jesus begins to make this comment about, to the guests, how they shouldn't just try to get the best seats, and to the person that bid them, don't always invite, wealthy people that can recompense you back. And so now there probably was like a little hush that came over the place, that little party atmosphere probably got a little, and then here comes this guy with all his wisdom, and so he bursts out with this statement. So that's why it says, and one of them that sat at meat with him heard these things. What things? The things that we just discussed, that Jesus has said. And he said unto him, blessed is he that eateth bread in the kingdom of God. So he thinks he has something profound to say. Look at what Jesus says to him. Verse 16. And it says, then said he unto him, a certain man made a great supper. Now Jesus is going to give them a parable based upon this man's statement. All right. Now remember, this man's statement is how great it is to eat supper in the kingdom of God. All right. Look at what Jesus says to that. A certain man made a great supper and bade many. Verse 17. And sent his servants at supper time to say to them that were bidden, come, for all things are now ready. Verse 18. And they all, how many? All, with one consent began to do what? Make excuse. Now, wait a minute. Now, see, this man that just got finished saying this at the party, at the dinner, was saying, hey, you know what? It's going to be blessed because we all going to sit at the kingdom anyway and eat. That's how blessed we're going to be. And Jesus was like, wait a minute. Y'all think y'all going to sit there because y'all are part of the descendants of Abraham. Y'all are the chosen people. Y'all are the Hebrews. You think you're going to automatically sit? You don't sit because you were born. You sit because you were invited and then you show up. In other words, when Jesus gives the invitation, you what? Accept it. Don't think that just because your mama was a good church person, or your daddy was a minister, or you born into a certain culture, or certain, because you're a citizen of the United States, I'm automatically in because we're a Christian nation. It don't work that way. So Jesus is saying, you think you're going to sit down at the kingdom, and yes, the person that does sit there is blessed, but who will sit there? And so he begins to say, they all begin to make excuses. The first said that I have bought a piece of ground, and I must needs go and see it. All right? And then he prayed that he could be excused. In verse 19, it says, and another said that he has bought 5 yoke of oxen, And he needed to go prove them. So he prayed that he could be excused. And in verse 20 he says, and another said, I have married a wife, and therefore I cannot come. And so now here you go with all these excuses. Now when you look at this, you see that Jesus is saying, all of you guys have been invited, but you all are going to reject it. You're not going to come. So don't think that you're automatically going to sit down, and this marriage supper of the kingdom of God speaks about the eternal feasting that we will have with the Lord. And there's a whole lot to say about that. I won't get into that. We'll talk about that more when we get into more of eschatology in the book of Revelations about what that is. But it's just a time when we are in the presence of the Lord and eating that heavenly meal. All right. And yes, it is a blessing if you get to eat that. But who will eat it? Who will be there? Who will sit at the Lord's table? All right. And so you see these excuses here. We can go through each one of these, but the bottom line is, one said I bought some land. I got some possessions. And a lot of times possessions are going to keep a lot of people from obtaining certain things because they put more value on things than they do on the things of God. Another person said, well, I got I got a yoke of oxen. I got this business deal here, and I got to go prove these because this is a good purchase here. This is a profitable investment. These yoke of oxen. I got to go take care of that. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, but recognize, don't let that get in the way of your invitation. Nothing should get in the way of your invitation. And then he says, well, I've married a wife, and that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with getting married. Everybody that the Lord has given the gift of marriage to should go ahead and get married. But don't let that get in the way of your what? Invitation. Don't let anything. But see, the problem is that their rituals, their Pharisaical teachings, and all of that stuff that they were holding to has gotten in the way. And Jesus is pointing out there's a lot of people that are not going to come even though they were invited. It's a sad thing. But look at verse 21. So that servant came and showed the Lord these things. Then the master of the house, being angry, said unto the servants, go out quickly into the streets and into the lanes of the city. All right, and he's talking about going to the city, the nearby town, or the close area within the city. All right, keep that in mind. And bring hither the who? Poor. See, notice that again. Once again, underline that. Bring in the maimed. Bring and the halt and the blind. So he says, do what? Bring in those that basically wouldn't be invited anyway. Did you have a question, bro?
Well, no, I'll wait till you go further. I think you're going to say.
Okay. So, I mean, when you look at this, you see that Jesus is saying, now, these are people that normally are not invited. So since those that were chosen did not get invited, bring in those that didn't even think they had a right to come. Go get those. All right? Yes?
Because something else I was listening to before said that the main issue with like the Pharisees and the Sadducees and whatnot was racial purity, like within their culture. Mm-hmm. So like the people like the Samaritans, they were like considered lowly because they had mixed the Hebrew blood with Gentile blood and non-Hebrew blood and intermarriage and stuff.
Right.
And so like this guy here, he would fall under it because he would think just because I'm a descendant of Abraham, they give me special privileges.
Exactly.
Whereas, like the Samaritans
couldn't make it in. Exactly.
What I was thinking was like in the city, go out in the city and get the poor. That would mean like the Israelites, like you said, wouldn't qualify. Right. But then when he hits the highways, that's like, well, just invite everybody, even get the Gentiles.
Exactly. Yep. And that's exactly what it is. But when you look at this, the maimed, the halt, and the poor. So those are the people within the Israelite people, but the Israelite people that don't measure up. Now they obviously didn't measure up physically, which represents how they didn't, people that don't measure up to what the so-called Pharisees were put. Remember, the measuring stick that the Pharisees had was their own viewpoint, but Jesus, he had a whole other viewpoint. Right? The woman at the well, the woman caught in adultery, Zacchaeus, Matthew, the tax collector. the Roman guard, all these people Jesus dealt with, and these people were touched and accepted Jesus as being the Messiah. Well, these are the people that the Pharisees look at as like they're unfit. All right, but then he continues. Look at verse 22. And the servant said unto the Lord, it is done as thou hast commanded, and yet there is room. Verse 23. And he said, and the Lord said unto them, unto the servant, go into the highways and into the hedges, and compel them to come, that my house might be filled. Now he's saying, don't even worry about going into the city. Go out of the city. Don't just go to the those of Jerusalem and those of your kindred and of your own town and city. Now go to these strangers and these other lands, and go into other places. People that are not so-called considered to be descendants of Abraham. Go there. So you see what Jesus is doing? He's breaking up their model. They think that they are I'm going to sit at this supper because I'm a child of Abraham. I'm a descendant of Abraham. And they think that just because of that, because of their heritage, because of their station in life, that they automatically are going to sit there. And Jesus is saying to this guy that made this statement about blessed is he that sits at the eternal supper. He's like, brother, you don't even know if you're going to make it. Don't think you're going to make it just because you are Israelite, because you are a Hebrew and you're a descendant of Abraham. That doesn't automatically get you in. And so what Jesus is saying, that there's going to be a lot of people there that are different. And look at verse 24. For I say unto you that none of those men which were bidden shall taste of my supper. You see that? Verse 25. And so these excuses also, when you look at this, there's a whole lot of excuses why people say Jesus is not the Messiah. See, he's not the Messiah because of this, and he's not the Messiah because of that. And so all these excuses as to why Jesus was not who he says he was, the person that made this invitation, I'm not coming because he's not the, it's true. All those excuses are going to have blocking power to keep them from that true supper. So it's important that we recognize the Lord as who he is, because that's what's really going to keep us out or get us in. It's not our goodness. It's not our greatness. It's our acceptance of Jesus. That's all that it is. Verse 25. It says, and there went great multitudes with him, and he turned and said unto them. Now, keep in mind that now he more than likely has left the supper, but yet there are people that are still what? Following him. All right. Verse 26, and he begins to speak to him and says, if any man come unto me and hate not his father and his mother and wife and children and brethren and sister, yea, and even his own life, also he cannot be my disciple. Now, what in the world is this talking about? Well, it's connecting to the last statement that he just made, that last parable about the man that went forth to bid them to come to the supper. They had excuses because they put other things as more important than following Jesus. And he's not saying that you ought to literally hate in the sense of hate, like I can't stand my parents, or I can't stand my brother, or I can't stand. No, he's saying that in comparison to your love for God, anything else should be at a degree to where it would almost be like, well, what degree could goodness be to friendship to another relationship will be, the degree of friendship to hate. Well, that's the distance that we should put. It's not saying that we ought to literally hate the parent or hate the mother or hate the sister, but your degree of commitment. If I have to lose the relationship between my brother or my sister because they make an ultimatum, you either stop following that Jesus or you lose me, then you got to choose Jesus. See, it was the same thing with the other parable. He shouldn't have said, the man that said, I bought a piece of ground, I got to go prove it. He should have called the people that he bought the land from and said, listen, I can't come and prove this ground now. I got to go to the supper that Jesus invited me to. I'll come at another time, or I ain't going to buy the land. Either way, I'm not going to change what I'm doing for the Lord. And the same thing with the person that bought the oxen. And the same thing with the person. And the person that married the wife has the weakest excuse. Because he should have just told his wife, come on, we're going to a supper. But he made a sorry excuse. All right? So the point is, and Jesus is bringing this out again, don't let anybody stop you. There's no relationship that is more important than your relationship with Jesus. And that's the point that he's trying to say. So if your father gets in your face and say, look, you either deny this Jesus or you're not my child anymore, then you're going to have to say, well, Dad, I'm sorry, but I just can't be your child in your view based on what you're saying, but I'm not going to deny Jesus. Same thing with brother or sister, and even your own self. You can't allow yourself to be more important than you obeying the Lord. There are a lot of things we want, we desire. No. Let's put ourselves behind. Now, does that make you perfect? No. But you certainly have to have that heart and the desire to what? Follow the Lord above following your own self. The Bible says that there's a way that seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of what? Death. So we got to not focus on always following our own selves either. All right. Verse 28. For which of you, intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first and counteth the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it? And I would underline that word, finish it. Because it don't matter what we do here. We can sit here in this little cafe and we could talk about the Bible all day long. But the bottom line is, if we don't finish, if we don't make it to heaven, if in our last days and however long the Lord takes to get here, be it 5 years, 10 years, 100 years, it don't matter. If we don't finish loving the Lord, then it's almost as if we never started. You got to finish. All right. It's like you watch sports, right? You see a guy make a great play. Here's right, watch a football game, and here they go, man. They're coming down, and they hike the ball, and everybody and they struggling. And you see the quarterback, he almost gets a tackle, but he slips and slip, and then you see him running to the side. And then, you can see the defenders are just about on him, and somehow or another he manages to get this throw off, and my goodness, he gets it off on his way down there, and you see the receiver, he's running, and it's like he's right there. Like, oh man, what a great play, and he drops the ball. Now all that effort, all that great play, everything that quarterback did to avoid the defenders, everything that happened, it was wonderful. It was great. It was great athletic ability, superior judgment, great, athletic sense. He threw the ball, that shows ability. The receiver ran, got open, everything, but he dropped the ball at the end of the play. How many points did you get? 0. You get 0 points after all that effort. I mean, it was a great effort, but you dropped the ball. You get nothing. You have to finish. All right? It's like the guy that has the ball in basketball. He dribbles through, he goes through the defenders. The guys try to swat the ball. He gets it up and he does a scoop, ducks under, a little English off it, and it bounces off the rim and bounces off. It's a great move, but you get 0 points because you didn't finish. You have to finish, and it's the same thing with Christianity. All right, there's going to be a lot, and this is something that this is where I have to take my hands off because I cannot explain it to you. I have to tell you even before I can say it that I cannot explain it to you. But there are very nice people. I mean, people that are very, very kind. But because they are not going to finish with Jesus, they're not going to make it in. They're kind, but they reject Jesus. See, so it's hard sometimes for me to understand and how to explain it. I just know this, that kindness has nothing to do with it. And sometimes because we have built the model up to the point that where we just feel, well, kindness is what gets you into heaven. No, kindness is just a result of what a person can do when they follow Jesus. But kindness has nothing to do with going to heaven. And we have to remember that. Jesus is the only way. Jesus says that I am the way. He says there is no other way to the Father except by me. And that's what we got to change our thinking sometimes, so we always kind of feel that goodness and niceness and being sweet and loving and all that, that's what gets you to heaven. No, it's not. It's Jesus. Now, the fact that you are saved and that you have accepted Jesus should begin to change your heart. Now, some people say, I know some people that are not saved that are nicer than people that are saved. And that's true. Because just because you are saved don't mean that you are a nicer person than anybody. It means that you've accepted Jesus. But I always would say this. Well, this person is really not all that nice, but have accepted Jesus. Imagine how they would be if they hadn't accepted Jesus. So once again, you have the degree. You know, a person that hadn't accepted Jesus, my goodness, they might be out there, you know, murderer, you know, a thug, rapist, you know, whatever. And yet, because he's accepted Jesus, he's not the sweetest person in the world, but at least he's gotten a little better, and he's on his way to heaven. Whereas you got this other person that wouldn't hurt a person, but when you ask him about Jesus, I don't believe in that Jesus stuff. I don't believe in that. I just believe in treating people nice. I don't believe Jesus was God. They're not going to make it. You see that? And it's important for us to make sure that we don't build false models. Because the world has built that false model that kindness and goodness is what God is looking for. No, God is looking for those that will believe Jesus is the Messiah. Now, that should help us to be kind and good and you know, help to develop us. But that's not our token into heaven. Right? That doesn't pay our way. And it's important that we understand that so that we don't get deceived a whole lot of times.
But I don't even with individuals. C.S. Lewis was saying when mere Christianity that God gives people innately the ability to be nice. Like some people are just naturally good at math or something, but that's just what you have to start with, and it's not the end. Whereas some people don't have that ability, or maybe they weren't raised in the best situation, but that doesn't mean that they can't get into heaven, or that they can't, they might become, like Daddy was saying, a little bit more nice, but they still don't compare to the person who God gave niceness to as a quality.
Right.
So it's like you can't. That's why we can't judge. We shouldn't judge people either, because we don't know where that person started.
Exactly.
In the beginning.
Exactly. And I always say that because we don't understand what a person is being attacked with, and this is something that I think I spend a little bit of time on this because it's so important. We only see the natural. We don't see the spiritual. So it looks like when I walk across this floor, when you walk across this floor, when you walk across the floor, that we're all walking, and the only resistance we have to go from point A to point B is the air or the wind, and how much, that's it. Make sure we can see the furniture and not bump into it, and that's it. No more difficulties. But in reality, that's not true, because each one of us have a degree of spiritual foe that is attacking us. Now, if we were able to put on spiritual glasses, boom, and then look at people, we might see that yet though this person is walking, there's one legion of demons that is just following you and throwing stuff at you and attacking you. But then there's 10 legions of demons that are attacking you. But but the fact that you have he has a few less bad days than you do. Well, if you could understand the amount of attack that Satan has on this person, you'd understand why this person struggles a little bit more with being chipper and happy and all this other good stuff. But yet the fact that they are making it through day to day is through the grace of God. And they will end up in heaven, and then all of the oppression. And that's why the Bible talks about the oppression of the enemy. The enemy has assigned a degree of attack, just like what he did to Job. All right, he sent a degree of attack. Now, Job, Satan recognized that he couldn't attack him, but so much because God had put what? A hedge of protection. And guess what our hedge of protection is? Jesus. Our protection is the Lord. And the only thing that can happen to us is that which God allows. But it doesn't stop the devil from trying to attack, to oppress. And if we step out of the hedge, then we're in trouble. But the thing is, the point I'm making is that you can't judge a person, like Selena was saying, by their so-called successes and failures as to how they are in their walk with the Lord, Because a lot of times you just don't know to what degree in the spiritual realm or in that other dimension, that spiritual dimension, they are being attacked. And so we think everybody's just walking the same. Everyone's got, no, I don't think that's true. There's a lot of people that got more oppression following them than other people. And it causes them to maybe not be as maybe as chipper, and maybe they get quicker, And then once again, it has also something to do with just what God has given you, personality-wise and ability-wise. So always keep those things in mind when we're getting ready to look at a person and, put a certain stamp on somebody, because we don't know what they're going for. And also, let's go right back to what we want to emphasize in this study. That's why we pray. We pray that all of those oppressions on people are broken. We don't want those things to become to the point to where people are overcome by those things, but that they can overcome. All right. So then, when we see a person that, well, I don't know, they seem like, I don't know what it is. And a lot of times, when you say that, I don't know what it is, that's a sign. You let that be a trigger point. You know what? I think I need to pray for this person, because I don't know what it is, and because I don't know what it is, it's probably something, spiritual. And so I need to go ahead and pray for this person, because there's something going on with them. And I'm just going to ask God to just free them and to give them deliverance and to give them strength, and to fight these spiritual battles. That's why prayer is so important. So we have to remember, we should pray. And prayer, don't let prayer become a chore. Let it become a joy, knowing that you're praying for somebody and that you are telling God that you want to join forces with them to help them fight their spiritual battle. Now, if somebody says, well, why would God want you to help them fight their spiritual battle? The same way he would ask you to go help the poor. God can help the poor himself. God could make a person that's walking down the street poor, God could just let him walk into a bag of $1 million. God could make that person as rich as he wants him to be. But that's not how he wants it done. He wants us to help one another. So if he wants us to help one another in the natural realm, what about praying for a person in the spiritual realm? He wants us to do that. And so he's trying to show the devil and the rest of them that we can love one another even in a sinful environment. That we can take the love of God and still love people when they are imperfect. Right? And we can do that. And God empowers people. And he gives strength through that prayer. And that's once again why we should continue to do that. All right? All right. And verse 29, it says, lest haply after he hath laid the foundation, he is not able to finish it. And once again, that's not what we want. We want to be able to finish it. All that behold it began to mock him. That's what the devil will do. Look at you. You spent all your life in the church, spent all your time serving the Lord, and look at you. You in hell with me. We don't want that. We don't want that mocking. That's a mocking. That's what the devil does. The devil taunts. He teases. Verse 30. Saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. 31. Or what king going to make war against another king sitteth not down first and consulteth with whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him that cometh against him with 20,000. So he says, I'm coming in with my lesser forces. Let me see if I can still overtake them that have greater forces. 32. Or else, while the other is yet a great way off, he sendeth an ambassador to desire a peace treaty. All right. So sometimes when you sit down and you're figuring out things, you say, okay, I got 10,000. He's got 20,000. I can still overtake him. So then you go on and fight the war. But if you go, well, I got 10,000, he's got 20,000. I don't think we can win. So you know what? Let's not fight the war. Let's go out. Let me send my ambassador out. And let's see if we can come to some kind of peace agreement. You think about those things so that you don't suffer what? Loss. And that's what Jesus is saying. Use the same consideration so that you don't suffer eternal loss. Try to figure out how to win in this race to heaven. And do you win by doing what? Accepting me as the Messiah. Once you've done that, you've won. But you consider what I ask. Because look at what he says. Look at verse 33. So likewise, whosoever he be of you that forsaketh not all right, you see that? All that he hath, he cannot what? Be my disciple. So you got to put all things behind Jesus. Jesus has to be the it. I want Jesus as my Messiah. Nothing's going to stop me from seeing Jesus as my Messiah. I don't care what it is. Be it death, be it life, be it riches, be it poverty. Jesus is my Messiah. Now, after that, whatever else comes is fun. It's fine. It's wonderful. But nothing goes before that. And nothing stops that. So Jesus is my Messiah. Point, that's just the it for life. Now, after I accept that, let me now fulfill all things that I can fulfill. Let me help do all that I can do. Let me build relationships that I can build. Let me do everything I can do, understanding that nothing that I attempt to do is ever going to come in between my relationship with the Lord. It's always going to be first. That's what salvation is. 34. Salt is good, but if the salt have lost its savor, wherefore shall it be seasoned? All right. In other words, he's saying, salt is fine. Salt's a preserver. Salt's a keeper. But if salt doesn't have its savor, what then can you do with salt? Well, I mean, even with mud, you can take mud and make bricks. So you can do a lot. But with salt, I mean, salt doesn't bind like mud. It doesn't do anything. So what is salt good for if it doesn't season? If salt doesn't do what it's designed to do, what good is it? When those that are so-called religious don't follow the Jesus, really, how good is the so-called religious experience? Look at verse 35. It is neither fit for the land, nor yet is it for the dunghill, but men cast it out. All right. So basically, what the Lord is saying is that if you don't accept Him as the Savior, then there's no real place for you in His kingdom. You have to accept Him. If you don't want Him, guess what He's going to say? I'm going to actually give you what you want. If you don't want me as your eternal Messiah, then I will make sure that you get what you want. So when it's all said and done, the reality of it, the God of the universe is going to give everybody what they want. I don't want Jesus. Okay? If you don't want Him, you don't have Him for an eternity. But then you have to be at a place where there is nothing that Jesus is dealing with. He's not going to be king of, to a degree, and it's hard to even fathom that. But the bottom line is, He's going to put you in a place what the Bible describes as eternal hell. And that's what that cast out represents. And that's not where you want to be. You want to be where you are working with Him, not in a place where you don't have to work with Him. That's not where you want to be. You don't want to be cast out. You don't want to be where Jesus is not my king or ruler. Yes.
I have a question. My friend is Christian, but she's married a Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
So as I'm listening to you, it's just making me think about their situation. Would that go along with that, or there's always a possibility he could become a Christian. There's a possibility she could become Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
In that sense, they're not equally yoked.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a difficult situation. There's no doubt about it. And that person, that's a Christian, put themselves in that situation. And the Bible does say that you should not be unequally yoked. Now,
it also says if you live with a non-believer, but they'll live with you, to not throw that
person away. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Like
So
he says, it's not a good situation.
yeah, it's a difficult situation. But once you have gotten married, then you have to stay with that person. The Lord says that you treat that person as your husband or as your wife, and you love them. And you don't win anybody by telling them how bad they are. You love them. So you should be the best husband or best wife that you can be. But at the same time, that person now has that added pressure of not allowing that spouse's belief to interfere with their relationship with the Lord. and they got to be very conscious and very focused, because what it does is it basically gives a stick to the enemy to hit them with. So you got to become almost numb to that, and at the same time, understand that you're married to someone that has different beliefs. So therefore, if they don't want to eat pork, then that's something that you can certainly do and still be a Christian. All right. They want you to wear certain outfits and all that. Well, you can still certainly do that and still be a Christian. All right. So there's give and take, but at the same time, you got to recognize where the line is and pray that God gives you the wisdom to know where the line is, or certain things that you cannot do. So if they wanted to, and it may be somewhat, I'll use the word confusing or embarrassing to other people, because if that person says, well, my husband wants me to wear these kind of clothes, and it looks kind of Muslim in its tradition, but they know that I'm wearing it because I'm married to a person, and to honor him as my wife, I have to, he would like for me to wear this, but that doesn't change my belief. Then
But that would tell me if he was willing to marry a Christian woman, he's not that dogmatic about his beliefs, so he wouldn't have done that in the first place.
Or it's the other way around. The Christian might not be that dogmatic about their beliefs.
Right.
But I mean, a Muslim that's that serious, I wants his wife wearing a burqa and whatever, he would make her probably switch over first.
Right.
I would think. I don't know the situation.
Right. But these are the type of situations that you might find yourself in. But you got to be able to make those decisions, and it's a prayerful situation, and there's no cookie cutter answer, unfortunately. That you have to take each day as it comes, and she should also make sure she surrounds herself with good Christians, because she's going to need help and prayer and all that, and that's one of those prayer things, and I'll certainly pray for that person as well. But that should be part of your daily prayer, because she's going to have that the opportunity to just kind of throw up hands and quit, because it may get difficult, But you never know. God can work things out, and the Lord can certainly bring him over. And that's what you pray for, that happens. But as you can see, Jesus, once again, through this 14th chapter, he's dealing with the struggles that these people have in trying to get Jesus to adhere to their beliefs about the so-called Sabbath and all these other different religious philosophies that they have. But Jesus is saying, you need to let go of that. Understand the scripture is pointing to me as the Messiah. Can you open your eyes and see it? And they have not done it. And Jesus is saying, you're so blind to the fact that you're going to miss out. You guys think you're going to end up in heaven and end up at this eternal supper, but you're missing out because you don't see the truth. The Bible says the truth shall set you free. And that's what we should be focusing on. So we'll pick up on chapter 15 on next week. We thank God for our study on chapter 14.